every Wednesday night from 6.
Yeah, everybody, we're tune in, like it, share it, post it, snap it, tweet it. We're going to have a great show for you today. I can't wait.
And all throughout the state of Mississippi.
I can't wait.
Updated on our ward in Ward 4.
Yep. I can't wait. We're going to have a great show tonight.
Queens to sub number 2 to Cedar Hill, over to Brook Hollow, and down to Oak Creek and Westchester Hills. And we'll be discussing all the issues of our community.
Mr. Evans coming on next. He's going to be live, all the way live. He's been hanging out with Phil Brown all day long. You know he's all the way live.
Council meetings to the business community, all of them. We'll talk about all of it every Wednesday night from 6 to 7 p.m.
The call-in number is 601-948-5950. That's 601-948-5950.
From 6 to 7 p.m.
Give me a few minutes to get in the room here.
Tag somebody.
Tag somebody.
Bring them in the room.
Yep.
I'm on. And no.
Now, you are
I don't know why Mac always hide away from the camera.
Got worms.
He got worms.
Look what the cat brought in.
Respect our black dollars is in the house.
Look at the folks said, but the cat threw up.
Exclusively on 90.1 FM.
You can hate me now, but not right now. Right. You can hate me now, but not right now.
Call-ins to discuss all community-minded issues of Jacksonians and Mississippians here and abroad. This is your
Oh, we were talking about the council meeting last night.
You're invited to voice your
He done slid in there. Lord,
I'm out of there.
we can't have both of them. All three of them.
You know.
That'd be a detriment. We're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, I can't get in trouble today.
Dekeither get us in trouble.
We're not getting us in trouble today. No FCC violations today.
Not today.
Because you won't say on your comes.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
I would not.
All right, Hannah, bring us on. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Reviving Mississippi Show. I'm your host, Dekeither Stamps. We got our co-host here, Mr. Mac Epps. How you doing today, Mac?
Man, I'm doing good, but as B.B. King said, they call it Stormy Monday, and Tuesday and Wednesday might be just as bad.
Well, you know, I want to open the meeting up in honor of Miss Juanita Blunson and the Blunson family. You know, she passed away a couple days ago, and she'd be truly missed in the Ward 4 Grove Park in the city of Jackson for far around. If you see Mr. Blunson and the family, definitely send your condolences out to him, because it's a hard time to be in the holidays and enduring this kind of loss. The 54 years of marriage is a beautiful thing, and they've enjoyed that, and we've enjoyed them sharing their lives with us all these years. So definitely keep the Blunson family in your hearts and in your prayers, and all the bereaved family. There's so much bereavement going on right now. I just want to open the show up in honor of all the bereaved families. I know a lot of times during the holidays we get distracted with the Christmas parties and the food and the gifts and all those things, but we kind of need to step back this year and all times and recognize that there are folks in pain, and we should be there for them in that time. I know we were at the hospital right before she passed away, and we were gathering there and just trying to offer support and just to be there. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. Sometimes just presence is enough. So sometimes you may have a hard time trying to figure out what do you say. Most of the time, it's not even about what you say. It's just about being present. So for all the bereaved families out there, definitely just go spend some time with them, pat on the shoulder, and just allowing them to heal during these trying times. So, definitely keep them in your hearts and prayers. Today's show, we're gonna do a little recap of our week. You got some announcements you want to make, Mike?
Yeah. I can save them for the end.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good.
When we talk about recognition, I guess kind of piggybacking on what you were saying in bereavement of the Blunson family, it's important to recognize people for the achievements and things they do, why they can hear it, and why they know it, and that's something that all of us, we can take to heart and start looking at doing for us the representation. I made a commitment to doing a birthday party to my grandma when she turned, I think it might have been 88.
And she's a birthday coming up, right?
Lord willing, next Friday she'll be 94.
Okay.
So, something we do to show them that there. And that's some things that we're doing. Some things that we're doing, in the community that's on the social side and on the service side. And on the social side, a couple things we talk about that was born in Mississippi that we lose, and that's economics for us, the agriculture part and the blues. So, supporting a local business that just got established here, Next Level, the Emmy's Restaurant. We're going to be recognizing Dr. Edgar Smith of the Mississippi Blues Foundation. And that's going to be this Friday at Next Level at 8 p.m. And none other than Mr. Jesse Robinson is going to be performing there. Two guys that has been fighting hard for the blues, and not the blues has been our psychological, spiritual way of dealing with oppression for so many years in the South. And we are looking at recognizing these gentlemen this Friday for their accomplishment and the work that they do with other blues musicians. So that's another thing we say. This guy, Dr. Smith, does so much, because what you saw on the show, Cadillac Records, how a lot of blues musicians had a lot of fame, but they didn't have any financial resources and support. And how hard it is when some of these guys pass to just try to get enough money together to pay for their funeral arrangement. So this is something they do. So supporting our own, recognizing our own, Tougaloo alum, black-owned business, big fan and supporter of the blues. This Friday at Next Level Experience on the backside of the Metro Center, right over the police department in the Emmy's Restaurant. You will have Mr. Jesse Robinson live in recognition to Dr. Edgar Smith and the work that he does with the Mississippi Blues Foundation. So make sure you come out and support that. We got the recap, and I would like to thank Councilman Stamps for the work that he done on recognizing the groups that participated in the sleep out. And that's
the brothers and sisters that participated in the sleep out came to the council meeting yesterday, and it was great to see how many folks participated, and I do appreciate everyone. It's actually spurred more activity. We got more people who are, so there's a group out there tonight.
Right, yeah.
That'll be sleeping out. So we encourage everyone to raise awareness about this homeless issue in the city of Jackson, because it is a big issue. And as a community, we have to wrap our arms around everyone, and not just some of the folks here in Jackson. We got to wrap our arms around everyone in order for the city to move forward.
At all times when you're dealing with somebody, you have to think about if that was one of your loved ones. When I got off the interstate today to come on to 80, there was a lady parked on the side that had ran out of gas. And she was trying to stop somebody. Out of all, I think maybe one lady had stopped and had went to get some gas. But she ran out of gas trying to get to the gas station on the exit. Nobody stopped. And it's easy. It's easy. We talk about how easy we pass judgment on folks and why they might have a situation. But we have to think about, we never know what's going to lay in the future for us or one of our family members. So when we dealing with encountering with folks, and especially if you have a position where you have taken a pledge to serve others, you have to take that into account. That what if that was somebody in your family? How would you want them to treat it? If that was your kid, your loved one, your elder, your parent. So I think Councilman Stamps for recognizing the work that's done. Because as we know, we state all the time, the revolution would not be televised. But it might be on Facebook. It might be. And they trying to work on blocking it. So the good stories. So I know you got a lot more stuff that you want to cover in some recap. I know from this Sunday recap.
Right. Another announcement I'll make before we get to that is on tomorrow we'll be having a coat drive at Next Level Entertainment. The Cotton Law Firm, Reviving Mississippi, and several other groups will be having a coat drive. And so if you got children who have outgrown their coats and it's lightly worn, or if you want to buy new coats, we got a lot of children in these schools who are going to school and don't have proper winter weather attire. Right. So tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30 will be a coat drive over at the Next Level Entertainment, sponsored by the Cotton Law Firm. On Friday, Jackson 2000 is having their winter holiday social at 5:30 at their office over off State Street. The ROTC departments are having their event on Friday at 5 o'clock at the convention center. So there's a lot of activities going on, but definitely be safe as you participate in these different things. Don't drink and drive and all those things. I know you brought up about the protest on Sunday.
Right.
I want to also thank everyone who participated in the protest on Sunday. Everybody from Respect Our Black Dollars, but also the members from the community who called me, who just joined in. I came, when they called and told me what was going on. I definitely came out there to show support. All the folks over in the West Side community who worked with Respect Our Black Dollars to put this protest together. Just to report what happened, the store owner was arrested and the merchandise was confiscated because of violations of city ordinances. And we must stand strong and ensure that these types of activities aren't taking place, and that people just abide by the law. And so I appreciate everyone who participated in that event, and because it did lead to people understanding that we're just not going to have certain things in our community. We're pro-business,
Right.
but we want the right kind of businesses, and we want the right activity at the businesses, and we want respectable businesses that are going to uplift our community versus bring them down. So we want to appreciate everyone who participated in that event.
I mean, we must set that standard and requirement. I definitely think that that's something that we have to continue to do in a more proactive manner. Requiring a certain level of business, regardless if it's us or anybody else. But we must know ourselves what we want, and we must give out what we want in return. And when we're doing business for somebody else, and even just being sociable and how we interact and how we talk to folks, but we set that standard and require folks that this means something. Now, I know some other things we're looking at for next week, and we're going to talk about that also, about another business doing something that is not kosher and that is not child friendly, and we're going to bring that to the table next week. But we have to set that tone. We have to do this ourselves, but we have to require out of ourselves what we want to see in others, and the accountability, the understanding, the research. And as we say for Jackson and just basically for the black community as a whole, nobody's going to fix it. Nobody's going to save it but us. We got to save it. We got to do what we have to do, even if that means the sacrifice of driving further to show that my black dollar is going to be respected. It means they're going to mean to order somewhere else or do without something to be taken seriously. So nobody's going to just take you seriously. And I think that this is an ironic thing I saw on Facebook. The guy, this white guy, pulled his black out, stopped him out of a road rage situation, and then he started talking about Black Lives Matter. And he was saying that you think just because you said it means something, what are you going to do? And when I saw that, my wife and I said that, I said, that's the same thing. We were saying we must require out of ourselves, first of all, knowing us and having a love for our people and understanding what we need to do to require it out of others. And that means something you might have to boycott and not support businesses. You might have to start your own. You might have to help somebody else start their business that's needed in your community. And you'd be amazed on how much money we put into the economic system and how much we get back. Even just from the city of Jackson, how much Jackson pay in taxes to the state and how much money Jackson get back in return when you asking and begging almost for the state of emergency to fix some of the problems that you have in your city and you don't get it. So I know you got some good stuff, and like I said, to recap from the city council meeting, we did talk about a couple of issues. Do you want to go update about the International Railroad?
Yeah. So we've been going round and round with this railroad closure on Livingston Road by the golf courses. And, years ago, they're saying they put that railroad there, and the railroad company is saying they had the right to close it because several people have run into it. It's causing an unsafe situation over there. Well, from our position, I don't see anything as of yet that would say you have the right to close dig up a city street. And so I'm going to continue to push everyone in our power to get something workable there, because the residents over there are in an uproar just how it was rolled out. There was no communication ahead of time before this action took place. So we're going to continue to move forward and work hard to get it reopened, but redesigned in such a way where it be safe and amenable to everybody, because that has been there for over 100 years. And so, changing it now because of some perceived safety concerns, which I kind of understand safety, but there are more things you can do to provide a better and a more safer underpass for folks to travel under. Mm-hmm. And we're going to continue to work hard to get that reopened and redesigned if necessary. If we want to redesign it, let's redesign. Let's talk about that, and let's look at what the costs are going to be to redesign and reconstruct an underpass there, so that it can be, what's necessary for the people to move forward. So let me catch this call. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, Councilman, I just listening to you talk about the overpass out there, road out there. And what's the difference between that one and the one on Johnson Street? That's about 247 trucks went on that in the last 20 years because I was trying to close it. So what's the difference?
And it's the same argument we made. We talked, myself, Council Stokes, we talked to some folks in the higher levels of the railroad system, and to them it was a small change, but to us it was a major change. So we're going to continue to push forward. We can't let this precedent happen, because if they can just start closing underpasses in the black community, they're going to keep doing it. So we can't have a precedent sit like this, because they're not closing underpasses and things like that in other people's communities. They don't even blow their horns when you go through other communities, and now they already blow their horns loud already coming through our community, and now they're closing activities. So we're not going to have we're not going to turn the cheek on this issue. We're going to push every angle we can. I even suggested we sue them and let the courts decide who has the responsibility or the authority to do such an action without discussing it first. So we're going to keep pushing every angle we can get to get it reopened and redesigned for a safer traffic, because I do agree that it is kind of restrictive and people have run into it. I even suggested, why don't we put a steel beam across on both sides of it to show that no vehicles above this height can travel through it. Because I guess some larger sized trucks tried to go through it, had hit the underpass, which was their concern. But kind of like the drive-through, when you go through the drive-through at the bank, they have that bar that's sitting there. Well, we could construct something like that to address those safety concerns. But if you don't have any conversation with us prior to doing something, we don't know to even be thinking about those possible alternatives. So the way it was done was what I believe is disrespectful to the community. And I also addressed the same concerns about the golf course to the administration and other members of council when they were proposing closing the golf course. How that was rolled out was to me in a disrespectful manner, because when you're going to make a change, a major change in the community, you talk about it ahead of time so people can understand what you're doing. You just don't do it, right? So the folks in that community feel totally disrespected. I feel disrespected as an elected official that covers a portion of the area, because we don't get the conversation ahead of time so that we can even know what the intentions are, and then turn around and start looking at alternative ways to work the issue out. It just happens, So we're going to continue to push forward and try to work this issue out.
All right, thank you much.
Yes, sir. And so, we're going to keep pushing on this issue, because it's very important to all of us, about how things are done in our community, both whether it be internal, like the golf course, or external forces like the railroad company coming in. And that agreement was made over in the 1860s, as far as our research can show us. That research was made, that agreement was made with the city of Jackson, way back in the 1860s. We had to go back into some deep records that were handwritten inside some log books in City Hall to even identify, what the agreement was. So we're going to keep pushing on all that so that we can move forward, because we just won't allow that kind of activity to be happening and the precedent be set, because once they start closing that one, then they're going to go down to the next one, because it's the same railroad company, has the same agreement. So we can't allow that precedent to be set inside the city of Jackson. Also update about some other things that took place in the city council meeting on yesterday. Every year, we propose a legislative agenda to the state about what we want, and we've been asking for the last several years that they fully fund the school system. And we haven't gotten any, that much support from the legislature in that regard. So this year, in conjunction with talking about fully funding education, I want to expand the conversation to some other things that we should be agreeing on. Because a lot of times when in dealing with folks that on opposing sides, you start with what you don't agree on, and you never get anything done. And so, as we know, we don't agree on the funding of education, but we listed some other things. And I want to first say I appreciate the folks in the Ward 4 office and the policy analysts who helped put this together, because I just talk about this stuff. They're the ones that actually construct these things. And the first thing we wanted to talk about was compulsory attendance for kindergarten students. Right now in the state of Mississippi, it's not required that you go to kindergarten. You could just show up to first grade and be moving forward. And we need for our children to be in school as early as possible. And so we're pushing that there be a requirement that young folks go to kindergarten, because there's a requirement for them to be reading at the third grade level by the time they leave third grade. And first grade, second grade, and third grade is not enough time to get all of our children to that point of reading. You got young folks coming to the first grade who don't even know the colors yet. Right? And to get that child from that point through the developmental process all the way to reading at the third grade level in 3 years. See, the system is designed for our failure. And so we're asking for there be a requirement that young people have go to kindergarten. And so we're going to continue to push for that. We believe we have bipartisan support. Democrats and Republicans agree with that. So I think that'll be a good step forward for us to move forward on. The next piece of our legislative agenda for education is to provide an employment contract for non-certified school personnel to establish a career ladder inclusive of a living wage. What that means is you should be able to get hired as a janitor and become the principal. If you're working as a janitorial person in the school, there are computers there. It's a place of learning. You should be provided access to computers so that you can sign up for college and you can go through the process to get certified. We have a success story in JPS. We have a janitor who did that, working with the principal. Well, if we've done it in one place, we can duplicate it in others. We shouldn't be locking people into certain positions because they don't have a certain level of education if they're working in the school, for goodness sakes. Same thing about the higher level education. There should be career paths so that folks are not locked into a permanent underclass because of education barriers. If they're working in the school, we're educators. Same thing about higher education. If you're working at Jackson State University or Millsap, Seville Haven, wherever, and you're working in the cafeteria, you should be allowed to go to take classes for free or a very low rate. Since you're employed by the education system anyway, you're going there every day. And if you're working the middle shift and you don't come to work till 2, that means you get all morning to take classes. So let's provide these types of services so that folks cannot be locked into a permanent underclass. You should always have the ability to be upwardly mobile in the education system. Vitally important. And this is something that both sides agree on. So we're going to try to push for that and get some movement there. The next issue when it comes to education is to raise the maximum lifetime benefit cap and increase health insurance benefits for educators and school personnel and provide health insurance coverage to school system retirees. Now, we got folks in the school district who are working, who deserve raises, but if we increase the healthcare benefits That's just like a raise. So if you got educators who are paying for different levels of health insurance, well, if the state would pay for that, that's the equivalent of a raise, because there's more money back into the teacher or the administrator's pockets on a monthly basis. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Councilman, for taking my call, and the other gentleman there as well. Good afternoon to the two of you.
Thank you, sir.
I call Councilman. I know you're on the subject of education and insurance and that sort of thing, but I wanted to sidetrack a little bit because on some other stations, there's a misconception of some misstatements and misleading statements that's been circulated as it relates to you and your councilman position, as it relates to you being on a transition team for the President-elect Trump. And can you clarify and give the listening audience some information pertaining to that and tell them the type of team that you was on and what your actual role is and has been and will be in the future as it relates to that? Because people are very misleading in some statements that are being made, and I think you need to clarify that as it relates to it so that the listening audience can know from you what it is and what it ain't. However, thank you, and I'll just hang up and listen.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you for calling, sir. Well, first off, we know it's campaign season. All right, and there'll be all types of things. Before this process is over with, I may be accused of all kinds of stuff, but know this. I love you. I appreciate the opportunity that has been bestowed upon me to serve in this capacity. And we're going to continue to move forward and do the best we can with what we got. The group I was honored to be a part of is the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. Was started about 45 years ago, before I was born, actually. And back in the early 70s, when black folks first started getting elected around the country, it was identified that, okay, you got elected, but you need a think tank. You need a group that you can go to get information, to learn how to function in government in the roles you're in. And so that's what the Joint Center has been doing for the whole time. It died down in the late 90s, and about 8-9 years ago, Spencer Overton and a group of other folks around the country decided we need to get this back up and running because black folks need a think tank. We need to be given direction that's based on research, And so they've been working to do that. So about 2 years ago, the president asked for 18 city council presidents who were black to come to the White House to discuss issues in urban areas. And I was honored and privileged to get an invitation to that. And, some folks there appreciated the value that we brought to the conversation and asked us to return when they were starting to plan for the presidential transition about 6-7 months ago. So we've been going back and forth working with this group, formulating plans, because we wanted to make sure that no matter who was elected, the issues for urban areas and issues for black folks were front and center. So we had several meetings over the course of this time, developing briefing materials for each of the candidates. And whether it had been Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or John Kasich or Marco Rubio, we had material prepared based on research for each of those political candidates. And so we've been working on that. So we were prepared and ready, and we didn't just meet with the incoming transition team. We've been working with the outgoing transition team, which is the Obama administration. That's how we got in the door to even be on the schedule for this process to take place. So through our efforts working with the Obama administration is how we even got in position to work with the transition team in the first place, because they wanted to make sure that no matter who became president, that the country cannot have a failed presidency just because they may not like the president. The country as a whole. So that's what this group is focused on, is making sure that black folks and urban city issues are front and center, but also that it's what's proposed from the federal government can even happen on the ground? Is it the best use of resources? A lot of times when you're at the federal level and you're trying to do something that, you know, for folks at the local level, it may sound good in Washington, D.C., but it's crazy on the streets in Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, or New Orleans, because it's not practical. You know, so that's the value that we brought to the whole conversation, is helping them to craft these things, and from a practical standpoint, that can be used at the local level. So I count it as an honor and a privilege. So has the rest of the folks that the grateful people outnumber the ungrateful people. I think it's there were, and to be honest with you, this group only consisted of 2 black men out of the 25 people who were a part of the actual group that made the cut to do the briefings and to be a part of the discussions. There were only 2 black men, so just to be the one of the 2. I was honored to be a part of this, and we've been back and forth to the White House over the last couple of years doing this. So I just count it all an honor and a privilege to even be at the table when you know you're on the menu, and Black America is on the menu, people. I just want to let you know we're a vulnerable population because we don't control enough of our economic, we don't control enough of our education system, we don't control enough of our community processes to even safeguard properly. You know, when you hear me say Jackson, Mississippi is probably one of the safest places in America to be black, it's because, you know, we may not be where we want to be, but we're not in the position that other folks are in as well. We've still got a long way to go here in Jackson, don't get me wrong. And we do have an issue with crime here just like everybody else does. But there's some urban centers who are under serious attack right now. And we are too. So just like in Washington, D.C., and I want to say this point, it's not about necessarily Democrat or Republican. Washington is about power, relationships, and resources. All right? So when it comes to relationships, my background gives me a higher degree of relationships than the average person that's in city council, because I spent the first 5 years doing presidential security with President Clinton, and the people who in the 90s who were interns and young folks who used to go and travel together for those years, not days, not months, but years, are now in senior level positions. You know, so I'm not going to tear apart relationships because of an election. Because relationships is how you move forward and how you get things done. It's not about some of the other things. And for those who watch on Facebook, it's on 90.1 FM. Tune in or on the web at WMPR901.com. So some of these relationships were built over a long time through some exhaustive travels under several administrations, because we did presidential security for President Clinton and for President Bush. Then from there we went on to work in embassies overseas, which we built more relationships in the State Department. So we have been building these relationships over the last 20 years, you know, so and they're starting to show some degree of fruits now. Hello, caller, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I was calling back also along the same lines, Councilman, that there were also some concern with some electors, Democratic electors on another show, that they were stating that no one had met with them in order to take the agenda to a national scene. So what I'm suggesting is that you try to explain that this is not that type of a process, and I think it would be good if you were to do it in your own words and make the listening audience aware of what exactly this was. It's been perceived as though you went up as a representative of a Democratic Party or from the Democratic Party, and in turn meeting with the president-elect. So give us some clarification on that and where that can have anything to do with the fact of what your reasons were going.
Okay.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank And also, while I may serve as a city councilman in Jackson, Mississippi, I also serve on the Democratic Executive Committee for the state. Another role that I serve in, I'm the first vice president of the National Black Caucus of local elected officials. So the National Black Caucus is a group of council people and mayors from all over the country who have elected, who elected us to be in leadership. So that role allows us to be in other levels of conversation. So this is not, I wouldn't represent the Democratic Party in this role. I was representing, myself as a council person who covers Ward 4 in Jackson, but also from the National Black Caucus of local elected officials. So we were representing from those positions. So we serve in a national leadership role. And as a leader, I don't have the opportunity to not step forward. Other folks have the opportunity to get mad because of an election. I have to move forward because I'm going to lead. I have council people and mayors from around the country who are looking for direction and looking for what do we do next. I have constituents who are looking for direction and what happens next and where do I go. So while some politicians are just politicians and some of us are leaders, and for a long time in the black community we have elected people to manage our oppression, not lead us through it. So what is being elevated now across the country are black leaders versus black managers, and we've elected managers, a good degree over the last 40 or 50 years. And now what's necessary, and this is out of necessity because people are desiring to be led through this. How do I get beyond where I am? Not just manage my oppression, not just make it more comfortable, but I'm still got this oppressive thing going on in my life. And there's one question you have to ask yourself to determine if you have a black leader or you have a black manager. And that question is there anything in this leader's platform that leads me to self-determination? You ask that one question, and that will determine what you're following, right? So what we're pushing always is self-determination and how you can move forward as a community and address your issues. Now, back to let me catch this caller. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question or comment?
Thank you. This is Chairman. Thank you, Councilman Stan. Based on what we know about Jackson the last 3-4 years, the situation that the city is in, based on finances and leadership, and a lot of more controversial issues that's facing the city, we have a white-controlled Caucasian mayor State House.
Yes, sir.
If this man Donald John is sworn in January, we'll have the same thing in the national level.
Right.
Now Jackson is the capital city of Mississippi. So based on those two things, and it's been troubling in the past to work with the State House, and it's probably going to be even more troubling to work with the national level too, based on the type of people being put in key positions. What do you see as a Black Caucus leader, and what type of advice would you give the mayors and other local officials around the state of Mississippi, and also the people that don't represent this city going forward, based on these things and the conditions and the problems of Jackson? What would be your true advice, not only to those politicians that look at you as being a leader, but also the people that look at you as being one of the local leaders in the city of Jackson? What can you do to help move this city forward based on the obstacles that are in front of us in the next 4 years under different administration, if you be part of it?
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, Kat, man. I appreciate you calling. Let me answer that question for you. What we've been moving forward with is towards a strong local economy. Local economy local businesses, local wealth. That's the first step, is creating a local economy and not being so dependent on other things, and how you can involve yourself in the global economy. That can shield you from oppressive state government and oppressive federal governments if you got a strong local economy that's linked up with other places that are similar to you. So what we've been discussing in our different cities is, how do we build an economy here in Jackson, for example, that links to like-minded businesses in Birmingham, in New Orleans, and in other places around the world. And we build a local economy based on what we buy and produce. Let me give you an example. For Mississippi, Mississippi has about 1.7 million acres of unused farmland in the state. We're not going to be able to chicken plant our way back to good financial health in this state. We're not going to be able to beef plant our way back into this. But what we can do is get back to growing food and build an economy based on agriculture. So we've been telling each state to identify what are the things that your economy can be built off of, that you can link up with other economies so you can have more jobs locally. Right now, most of the food in this country is grown in California and Texas, but Mississippi has the best farmland. And even the way our interstates are built for agriculture and war. That's the way our whole state's built for agriculture and war. So we have to, as Mississippians, get back into agriculture, producing and growing food. Let me give you an example of what that sounds like when it comes to money. Right now, we purchase about $6.5–7 billion in groceries every year, but we only produce $100 million in fruits and vegetables locally. So we're purchasing over $6 billion in groceries that's not from Mississippi.
Right.
So if we were to just produce what we consume, we would expand our economy and build wealth. That building of wealth can shield a local community from everything else, because one thing that trumps all this is making money. State governments like to make money. Local governments like to make money.
Everybody like to make money.
Right. So you can now when you go to, when I go to the State House this year, I'm gonna be talking about building a strong local economy for Jackson versus talking about the stuff we disagree on. Just like when I was talking about education a few minutes ago, talk about the things you agree on first, so that you could develop at least a level of respect with folks who don't look like you and don't represent your interests. But if you just start the conversations all the time with what you already agree on, then you get nowhere. But the people that have voted for me, I can't go back to Mr. Starks over in the Queens or Miss Barbara over in cell number 2 and say I didn't get anything because I don't like it. I don't like what they're doing. They want results. So what we're focusing on is identify what you agree on first, and don't get caught up in the emotionalism and all this other stuff. Don't get caught up in all the hype and all that stuff. Focus on what we can agree on. Build a strong local economy so that when you get to the stuff you disagree on, hopefully you'll have a higher degree of respect for each other where you can still communicate.
Right. And
that's the goal, is getting back to where we can still communicate. Because as a country, we went to the left, or we started focusing on all the stuff that the left wants. Then we went right. But there's a group of folks in the middle. Good white folks, good black folks, good Democrats, good Republicans, who must rise and keep this country on track, because this is the same way that the Roman Empire failed. When they started having mass ignorance and emotionalism, when they elected Augustus in the Roman history, that's when it turned. Right? And so we're on that same path, right, historically, of taking a downfall, and we're going to be that generation that has to shore it up and has to turn the ship back right. So we have to take a different road. Let me catch this caller. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question or comment?
Yes, sir. How are you? I think you Johnson here.
All right. I can hear you now, brother. I can hear you now. All right.
I'm listening to y'all talking,
and about trying to get this to start. I have to be the black owned business in South Jackson. I've been around South Jackson for the last 10 years. Start those South Jackson have been great. I was doing barbecue. On the road there.
Hey, Mr. Gator, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. I'm doing fine. I'm glad to get y'all out. This is Joe. I'm not working tonight, so I got a tell to actually hear. And let me tell you, teacher, now my son got one on Southwell.
I know, this is my ward. I went by there, yeah.
Right. We're trying to do something. I want to turn that plaza down there into all restaurant. Now, I didn't go down to the city, I didn't get everything. And what you believe? I got the question. I want to bring it down there to the show one day to go to see what they're asking with an already existing deal because it's bothering me, and I shouldn't be calling like this. But these are some of the problems that they're having in Jackson. There's so much I want to do in South Jackson, but my spirit has been broken right now. But now, the process of doing it, I wish you would get those guys on the radio and just talk to too much. Some of the city people, let's ask one of them to come in and one in zoning and ask them some of those, and let's just let the people in Jackson know, the public know exactly what's what. And I really can't give what's going on the other end.
Well, I got your number, Mr. I got your number, and I'm gonna give you a call when we get off the show, okay?
Yes, sir. But let me see some. I got some ideas in South Jackson, and I really want to do it. I'm gonna need some help. And you're a very smart guy, so that's I listen to you a lot. And I think you can do this. I'm gonna hang up and let you have your show, and I can call me. But we're talking first.
Okay, good deal.
Thank you.
Yeah. And and I appreciate it, brother, for calling. We're moving forward. So when you look at what can you do locally, right? And we've already started this plan. We started this. We call it our resiliency plan to shield us from a state government and federal government that don't necessarily support our interests. So we've been doing this. You'll see Stamps Super Burgers opening up in the Metro Center in a few weeks. Big Apple Inn in the Metro Center in a few weeks. Amy's Restaurant, all that. That's building a local economy with local business owners that own the business, not some chain business from some national brand. Because people go to cities and they want to eat out, but they want to taste your local flavor.
Right.
They go to Applebee's everywhere, but they want to. What do you have that's local, that's different, right? So we must invest in our local businesses so that they can grow, create wealth, and we can move forward. And so that's how you insulate yourself. And let me answer Cabman's question a little deeper. So your local economy is first, then your local voting base is second. So your money, your votes insulate you from these other levels of government and give you the bargaining chips that you need. So when you go to the table, you got something to negotiate with. Let me catch this next caller. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question or comment?
How you doing there, brother?
Hey, bro.
Hey, I was calling to ask for, not actually, for the next two comments about what you were talking about and what the brother was asking you to explain why you went to the transition of Donald Trump. I think both understand what you and each has something that is, hey, but we got to learn how to get along with no matter whoever in office because
That's right.
Donald Trump, he can't do no more than the people let him do, because you got, it's like everything he do, he has to be voted on, right?
Well, some things he can do, but a strong local economy helps you to shield yourself from a lot of foolishness.
But what I'm saying though, most of the stuff got to be voted on. We know he can do an executive order. He only do so many executive orders. But what I'm saying, most of them got to be voted on, right?
That's right.
Okay, but what I'm saying is just like, instead of asking you what we should be doing for you, what you should be doing for us, what the police should be doing. I don't think we can do so much for the crimes and stuff. We need to be asking, what can we do to help y'all?
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
But y'all don't get rid of so much. We start thinking to help y'all, help the police department. We can't take everything.
That's right. That's right.
People that got these people that know these people that's out here robbing this people, they stay with somebody. They don't have a house of their own.
That's right. That's right.
They living with someone. So we need to be saying, what can we do as citizens Yeah, okay, Jackson. That's because a lot of people they love Jackson. Show me that you really love Jackson.
That's
Well,
right.
Show me that you really care for the people. It's just like I was telling somebody about. You talking about their church going. I don't go to church, but I believe in what you do. You gotta, show me what you do.
Right.
It's like people go to church and say, okay, so a crackhead, a crackhead, prostitute walking over there. The first thing folks in there, they talking about them.
That's
They're
right.
not saying what can we do to help this crackhead, or what can we do to help this prostitute. They're putting out negative activity, nothing positive. So we need to come out to church and stand up for what we say we believe in and show what we believe in. We didn't do a whole lot of negative stuff, but we do more positive stuff. And I appreciate what y'all doing for the people that in that park and being home, because like they say, you don't never know what making folks go to what they in right now.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're not in that big way. Okay, when you get to be in that big way, you understand what these folks are going through. But I like what you're doing, Chancellor. You keep doing what you're doing, brother.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And he gave me a little bit more fire.
I'm motivated now.
Is-
Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question or comment?
Hey, I got a comment that's sort of a question.
Okay.
I've noticed that during the holiday season, the JPD officers are working individual security in some of the shopping malls and shopping outlets. But aren't they using the city vehicles, the police vehicles and all that? Aren't they using the taxpayers' dollars to have these police cars with the lights on while they're working outside detail for these entities? Is that a good thing? I mean, we're trying to generate tax dollars, but look at what some of us are seeing our tax dollars are being used for.
Well, let me answer that in two ways. First and foremost, those JPD officers are allowed to do that based on the way we've done business with our businesses, and because what it does is it allows for safe exchange of merchandise so that we can get more tax dollars. If people aren't shopping because people getting robbed in the parking lot, that's going to hurt everybody's business. The city's business is going to hurt the money going forward. So we have gone into contractual obligations with several places to offer that service at an additional cost so that we can help offset some of our overtime pay and those types of things.
Right.
So,
So that pay is actually going to the city. It's not going to the individual officers. Is that what you're saying?
in some cases, it depends on how it came.
Dekeither, you're skating around.
I'm not.
Dekeither, no. Those officers are being paid individually by
But that's not illegal.
those entities
But that's
that
not
have
illegal.
them patrolling. But they're using the city vehicles and stuff, and people like me that are seeing my tax dollars being used in that form.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to want to get in and help when I see my tax dollars being used for this purpose. And why aren't we patrolling like that during all the rest of the year and not just during the holiday season? If you go to Flowood or Madison or Clinton, you see their officers all the time in the shopping centers where they're visible. And it's not just the holiday season.
Okay.
The only time you see our officers is during the holiday season when they're making extra money to patrol these places.
Okay, thanks a lot, brother. And so those activities are illegal.
Right.
And every way that we can open up to allow our police officers to make more money, I'm not going to apologize for giving our police officers the ability to make more money. We got people being furloughed because we got thousands of people not paying property taxes in the city. We got thousands of people not buying car tags in the city. And so every way I can open up for my police officers to make money, whether it be using a city vehicle or in their off-duty time, it's going to provide a better learning experience for our people. I mean, a shopping experience. We're going to catch one more caller. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
I want to answer that question, that last caller. Because when a police officer is a police officer, he's a police officer 24 hours a day. And I'm one to advocate, you don't speak for all of us. I've been in Jackson for 50 years. And I want you to have security, especially during this holiday season, because that's when the crime rate goes up.
Thanks, sir.
And when you see a police presence, they less likely to commit any crime. So you're not speaking for everybody. I don't even doubt if that guy even live in Jackson. Didn't even mention anything like that. It pisses me out with people like him and these people that live over at Rankin County, y'all keep y'all politics over there and you let us run Jackson. And I get really sick and tired of that. And then the reason there's slack going on, the reason you see police officers over at Madison and Rankin County, because they're not Jackson. They don't have a million people live there, folks.
Thanks a lot, brother. We appreciate it. Hello, Miss Silky. How you doing?
Yes, but this is Silky. I have something to say.
Okay.
We need to patrol our own neighborhood. If you see something, say something.
Yep.
Don't stay back in these houses and see things happen and don't report it. We that have homes in these neighborhoods, patrol our own bloody neighborhood. Make sure don't nobody come in our neighborhood acting up. Peace out, brother.
And you know, we're gonna run. This is the last caller we're gonna take. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question or comment?
Hello, the cube stamps.
Yes, sir. How are you?
You do a wonderful job. Don't be sidetracked by the people that don't understand what you're trying to do. On TV shows, they said some things about God didn't like. I know you as a comrade to be able to young people, and I know you're not the kind of person that they try to let you be. A lot of issues in the city, but they do what they can. But we have to work with them and get them to the elements and all the facts they need in order to do a job. And the first start should be right here in Jackson. And I appreciate doing the homeless need help. The homeless need help. And Frank Bump's right there.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a lot of fire, Frank Bump, my hands off to you, and we love you. God bless you.
Thank you. And we're going to wrap up. Mr. Evans is chomping at the bit back at the bus in the door. But I want to say this. You know, we got 2 minutes left to go on the show. And, you know, at the end of all of our shows, we always say, never let anybody put you in a position where you don't love your own people. Now, let me tell you why we say that. Right? We say that because of times like this. When people try to manipulate you, I'm going to be the same person I was. You sent a man to Washington, D.C., and a man came home. Right? I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna stand up for your issues just like I do at home. I don't kowtow. I was built to be a man. You don't grow up and learn in Mississippi being Delma Stamps' son and not be a man. You don't join the Marine Corps and spend a whole career in the military and retire and not be a man. Right? So I'm gonna be that same man that I was built to be, whether I be here in Jackson, Mississippi, Washington D.C., out on the streets, you know, protesting the gas station, sleeping with the homeless out in the park, or eating fine china in the West Wing of the White House. I'm doing this. I'm the same person, right? I may have a different conversation, you know, and we're gonna continue to do that. And we say that never let anybody put you in a position where you don't love your own people, or where make you hate yourselves. Because during campaign seasons, it's going to get even rough. That's why I said at the beginning of the show, by the time this campaign season's over with, people might say all kinds of things. But what I'm going to tell you, I love you. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to keep loving you because the grateful people outnumber the ungrateful people. And we're going to keep pushing forward and just, this mayor's race is going to tear the city apart. And somebody got to be sitting here focused on the business of the people and not let this city get torn apart. Because all our other cities around us look up to us. So Jackson has a responsibility to not be emotional, not be temperamental, but to lead the rest of these small towns, Edwards and Bolton and Terry and Crystal Springs, who are looking up to Jackson for leadership. So we must conduct ourselves in the right way and move our cities forward because we got a responsibility here in Jackson and not allow these different races and campaigns and all this stuff to tear Jackson apart like it just tore America apart. We can't let it happen in Jackson. So let's stay strong together. I love you. Handyman, take us out of here. We'll see y'all next week. I love y'all. See y'all next week.